Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about something pretty much all of us have dealt with, the school feedback survey. We're going to break down how this simple thing can either be a fantastic way to build trust with your community or how it can totally break it.
So let's start with a scenario that I'm sure sounds familiar. You get that email from your school, doesn't matter if you're a parent, teacher, or student. It says, "We want to hear from you. Your voice matters." So you do it. You sit down, you give it some real thought, and you share your honest feedback, hoping it's going to make things better. But then what?
A lot of the time, it feels like your feedback just disappears into this giant black box. And then maybe a few months down the line, you hear about some big new decision, and the school says it's based on survey data. And you're left just scratching your head thinking, wait, did they even listen to what I said?
Well, there's actually a name for this. It's called performative feedback. It's when asking for your opinion is, well, just for show. The real goal isn't to start a meaningful conversation. It's about collecting just enough data to back up a decision that's probably already been made. And this right here is where that trust starts to wear thin.
So how does this even happen, right? How does something that starts out with such good intentions, hey, let's get some feedback, end up feeling like a tool that's being used against the very people it's supposed to be helping?
And this is really the heart of it all. The problem isn't collecting the data. The problem is falling for the illusion that just because you sent out a survey, you've actually listened. They're not the same thing. Checking a box isn't the same as hearing a voice.
You know, it is so easy to look at a pie chart or a bar graph and think, okay, those are the facts, hard numbers. But the truth is, it's way more complicated than that. Surveys are not neutral at all.
Data scientist Kathy O'Neill just nails it here. She says, models are opinions embedded in mathematics. And a survey, that's a model. Every question that's asked, and maybe more importantly, every question that isn't asked, it's all shaped by the biases and opinions of the person who created it.
So when that already biased data is looked at without any real context, it can be turned into a weapon. It gets used to justify some new plan, to give leadership more authority, to protect the way things have always been done, and worst of all, it's used to shut down any real conversation. Hey, the data has spoken. End of discussion.
This whole process kind of preys on something that affects a lot of us, data illiteracy. I mean, most of us aren't really trained to ask those critical questions, are we? Like, who actually wrote this survey? What were they trying to prove? What perspectives were left out? Without asking that stuff, we just accept the results as truth.
And this quote from Jerry Z. Muller, it's just perfect. Schools often measure what's easy to stick in a spreadsheet. Satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5. But that totally misses the things that really matter, like a student's sense of belonging or a teacher's creative freedom. You can't put a number on that.
Okay, so how can we tell the difference? How do we know if we're seeing real, genuine engagement or if a school is just going through the motions? Well, it turns out there's a really useful framework for this, a way to figure out where we really stand.
It's called Sherry Arnstein's ladder of participation. Now, it wasn't originally for schools, it was for community organizing. But man, does it apply perfectly. It gives us a visual for the different levels of power a community has when it comes to making decisions, from basically zero power all the way up to full ownership.
So as you can see, the ladder has these three main sections. Way down at the bottom, you have non-participation. That's where the whole point is really just to manage people, not to include them. Then in the middle, you have tokenism. This is where you get to have a voice, but you have no real power to make sure anything happens. And then at the very top, that's the goal, citizen power. That's real, genuine partnership.
So let's think about it. When it comes to most of the school surveys we see, where do they usually fall on this ladder? Yeah, you guessed it. Overwhelmingly, they're hanging out right here on the rungs of tokenism.
And here's the crucial difference. With tokenism, you're being informed. You're being consulted. Maybe they're even placating you a bit. But what you are not is a partner. It's not a collaboration. It's basically just data extraction.
So if so many of us are stuck on these middle rungs of tokenism, how do we start climbing? How do we move toward a real partnership that actually builds trust or maybe rebuilds it inside a school community?
Well, here's a path forward. It's built on 5 core principles. First, you have to be crystal clear about why you're collecting this data in the first place. Then, you help everyone get smarter about data so they can ask tough questions. That's when a survey stops being an endpoint and starts being a dialogue. And this next one is huge. You actually bring the community in to help make sense of the results together. And finally, you have to be radically transparent. Share everything, not just the parts that make you look good.
You see, when we start to embrace these ideas, it totally changes the game. It fundamentally shifts our understanding of what we're even doing when we ask for feedback.
And that brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway here. We have got to stop looking at feedback as a tool we use to get something. It's not. It's a relationship. It's a conversation. It's how a school and its community stay connected.
Look, we are swimming in data today, but numbers by themselves aren't enough. To build a great school, you need ethics and you need trust. When feedback is handled with care, it can be this incredible force for good that brings people together. But when it's misused, it just drives us further apart.
So the next time that survey lands in your inbox, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Is this an act of building a relationship, or is this just collecting data? Because choosing to demand real transformation, that starts by asking for more than just a place to click a box.